You're listening to the Skylight Books podcast. We're an independent, general interest bookstore putting great reads in the hands of people in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. Hosted by resident Skylighters, we're here to bring you new and exciting author conversations, group reads, and bookseller chats. Happy listening. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome back to the Skylight Books podcast. I'm your host, Nat, and today I am so excited to welcome Shala Miller to talk to us about her new art project, beautiful, beautiful book called Tender Noted. Shala Miller, also known as Freddie June when she sings, was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio by two Southerners named Al and Ruby. At around the age of 10 or 11, Miller discovered quietude, the kind you're sort of pushed into, and then was fooled into thinking that this is where she should stay put. Since then, Miller has been trying to find her way out and find her way into an understanding of herself and her history, using photography, video, writing, and singing as an aid in this process. She holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in studio from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, where she studied photography, film, video, and writing. Thanks so much for joining us, Shala.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to talk to you about this project, book, beautiful object. Would you like to start us off by reading us a little something from it?
Sure. So this is one of the poems that's included in the book, and it's from a time where I had given myself like this writing challenge to write a poem every single day within the month. And just as a way to kind of understand how to access language for how I was feeling, and also with the hopes of like writing a essay to go with the video. So this poem is called Untitled in December. My eyes are too big, your mouth is too wide, and it's Sunday. Your dad always smells like grease and rose water. My dad's sheets always smell like hospital hallways. You like terrible people. I'm a self-proclaimed bad Christian, and we both have been asking, what are love letters really about? So may I ask that you cover me once again in the skin you're in. It's cold. That's that.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I was so engaged in this book once I saw it. Our buyer who buys all of the things for our arts annex, like he gets new things and he showed it to me. He was like, this is cool, you should look at this. And I started flipping through it, and my first thought was, I feel like this is what people hope their projects turn out to be like and feel like and look like.
Oh, wow.
And when I get to a lot of them, they don't, and different projects hit people in different ways based on your experiences and your life and the things that have happened to you. But this is such a beautiful piece of work, and I immediately I was like, I need to talk to her about this.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's just it's so beautifully put together, and there's so many different, there's, like we said, photo, there's video stills. Is that what a lot of the multi-panel pages are?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for our listeners who will have to stop by Skylight to grab a copy, do you want to tell us a little bit about kind of the construction of it and how you decide, for instance, why you decided to take a video and break it down into panels and put it on paper, and how kind of the design of this book came to be?
Yeah, so thankfully I worked with a really lovely designer. Her name is Kyla Arasadia. And really with the help of her, I was able to figure out what would be the best way to include, because it was really important to include the film works in the book, because they were the anchor of the whole project. And I wanted to include them in a way that still was able to communicate the sense of motion that is just inherent in a moving picture in a film, and not just be literal film stills on a page. And so me and Kyla had a lot of conversations about that, and settled on this, which is common throughout the book of like, especially in the very first film that's introduced, the Echo. It's like this stop motion, like, or has the same feeling as a stop motion of stills from when I'm biting into this grape and showing like every step of the way of peeling this grape, and constructing it in this sort of grid so that you could really get a sense of time moving, and then also just like my mouth moving. So that, and then also some of the films, some of the stills are just blown up and are taking up the entire spread. And I felt like the combination of those two things just felt really good in terms of like communicating the movement. And so the whole project or impetus was, with Wendy Subway, I had applied to their open call for manuscripts for a different project that they do in fall of 2019. And I didn't get that one, but they really liked my manuscript. And then they reached out to me in January of 2021, so just last year, and said that my work would probably be better suited for this other series that they do called the Document Series, where they're working with artists who are thinking about or working in movement in any kind of way, so performance or filmmaking. And so, yeah, it was really important to have the film works in the project. And this whole series, this book comes from this project that I had, or the study that I had started in the spring of 2017. I was in an ethnography class as my last semester of undergrad. And as a project, we were supposed to do our own ethnographic study. And I decided to study the relationship I have with my mother, but specifically focusing on the epigenetics of trauma and how that is realized in our dynamic. And so the first couple of assignments were just, standard essays, but I really loved working in this way, and like found a way of, like, it was my way of finding personal essay, or like the personal essay format, something I never really done before. And from there, for our final assignment, we had to continue the study, but to maybe do something creative, or we were really allowed to explore outside of just a written essay. And so I decided to do a video essay, which is the Echo, the very first film that's included in the book. And it was incredibly difficult to make, and I felt like I didn't know what I was doing at all. But I really enjoyed the outcome, and I had showed it to my mother once it was finished, and I got my grade, and she really enjoyed it too. And I just became so obsessed with this way of making, and this way of like discovering oneself. And so, I mean, I graduated school after that, but then I just wanted to continue the project. And so I was really thinking about how to expand the practice of like taking field notes, thinking about ethnographic fiction, and really thinking about how many different ways I could conduct this study, and really just stretch and pull at the practice of ethnography and ethnographic art making. And so doing so with poetry, with video, with photography, with performance, with creating characters. Um, and for a while, it felt like a mess. Like I felt like I like a bit of a dilettante, and like I didn't really know what I was doing, and none of it made any sense. And then in January 2021, or really a little bit before that, it was starting to make sense to me. And all of the um, points started to connect between like the photography that is just like, reminiscent of traditional documentary portraiture, and then the photography that's maybe more reminiscent of like, or fits within a more contemporary conceptual conversation with the image and text work, and relating that back to the performance work and the poetry and the journal. It just all felt like it made sense, but especially to put together in a book. And yeah, then soon after I realized that, I got this email from Wendy Subway, and I was like, oh, perfect.
Perfect. This is gonna work
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
And then I'd love to hear how if it was a part of your practice before kind of working on this ethnographic study and the idea of pulling that apart, or if it is something that came about with this project, but your practice of self-portraiture. Is so the ones in the book, and then I saw some of the ones on your website as well, are just so stunning, and they're beautiful. And again, like this, I've looked through and read through this book a few times because I just keep coming back to it. But and specifically too, like the way the pictures are either blown up or focused on like a certain piece of the photo that may not have been the whole. But self-portraiture is such it's such an interesting practice, and it means so many different things to different people, and people do it for certain reasons. And it seems like it is a main part of your practice, or has been something that you've worked on a lot. And I'd love to hear some more about those choices and what that practice means to you.
Yeah, it really is kind of like the bedrock of my practice. I became interested in photography at a pretty young age. I was like 13, and it really started from seeing my sister find this like really clunky digital camera my mom had gotten from her job. They like gifted her a printer for working. She worked at this job for like 600 years. And then they gave her a printer, and the printer came with this digital camera, and the camera had a flip out screen. And my sister would use it to take pictures for MySpace and of herself. And I was like, oh, that's fun. I want to do that. And so I did that. And then she also had downloaded like this bootleg Photoshop. And then I started to edit pictures in a way like, adding a blue tint and writing lyrics of whatever song on top of it. And I was incredibly, incredibly, incredibly shy growing up. And because of that, I really only felt comfortable taking pictures of myself or my parents. And once I really got like fully invested in photography, my parents got me a camera, like a DSLR, for my 16th birthday. And from there, I just really, really fell deep into this obsession with photographing and documenting, but it was mainly self-portraiture and then portraits of my mom and dad. And it was really because that's where I felt most comfortable. But I felt even the most comfort exploring with just myself in like either my bedroom or in the basement, or where I could really be alone. And that really just kind of stuck. Like it took me a while to, and I still kind of consider myself a shy person in many ways, but it really was very, very like a really tenacious hindrance when I was growing up. And so I did grow to love to photograph people in my life once people became a part of my life, once I allowed them in and had friends other than my parents. And but still to this day, I feel most comfortable with self-portraiture. And it became incredibly important to me as a way to discover myself in a way that isn't like so like I still am left with questions and inquiries, I guess, about who I am, and still feel like there's so much to discover. But there is a kind of comfort that I get from self-portraiture and a kind of self-discovery. Um, and also, play is very important to me in general, and it's very fun to do, especially like the image and text works that feel a little bit more like collage. Um, but yeah, so it just kind of makes me feel like I have a like it's kind of self-affirming or like self-actualizing, the process of self-portraiture for me. And there's like still room for slippage. It's not maybe always so self-actualizing. But it does feel like a way of like holding myself or taking control back of myself, of my image.
And then there's a lot of there's more kind of like notes towards the end and of the book, and there's some of the essays and content throughout as well. But I wanted to talk about your dad a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
first say that I'm sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you.
Um, and what I really, really enjoyed about the parts of this book that were about him were witnessing and documenting that
Mm-hmm.
grief,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially in a time where collectively and a lot of people individually just are not acknowledging
Mm-hmm.
our grief. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there was something so beautiful just about bearing witness to the entire experience, and your practice as a documenter, like, and a
Mm-hmm.
witness, as an artist, was such a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful way to capture that. And just throughout as well, like, I love the way that you speak about your parents in this book,
Thank
and
you.
the way you use their first names is just such a, it's such a like personable human, um like uh way to acknowledge them,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like we don't talk about often.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, like, when we talk about our lineage or our ancestors, and we kind of, it they can take on sort of mythic
Mm-hmm.
ideas sometimes. um and there was just such a, like, a thread of seeing people as human throughout this book, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I loved that so much and thought it was so beautiful. And I would love to hear a little bit about how and why you felt it was important to acknowledge that grief, and how it helped you maybe through that whole experience of losing your dad too.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, my father, I was very close to him, and am struggling, but am finding that I still can be in the wake of his death or during mourning, grieving. And I'm also very, very close to my mom too. And so my father, I mean, he was sick my whole life, like, or from as like my earliest memories, I remember him being struggling with his health. And He was a heavy smoker, and tried to quit when I was young, but then struggled, but then was diagnosed with COPD. And it developed into lung cancer in his last couple of years. Um, and so I knew from a young age, just seeing him get sick and having hospital visits every once in a while, that um, it it was like I just knew in my spirit. I remember being very, very young and being very afraid of it, but knowing deep down that I was going to be young when I lost my dad. Um, and still, it didn't prepare me in any kind of way for the pain. Pain is extraordinary. But it really, even ahead of his death, my parents are so, my upbringing, they are so foundational to me. And because in my work, I spend so much time thinking about um, my position in the world as a way to understand everything around me, I then think a lot about my history. So I first will think about my parents, and in what ways my relationship to them, my like being brought up by them, um, has made me who I am in whatever way, and also just thinking about who they are as people, and um, how them as people have, impacted them as, or defined them in whatever way as parents, or contributed to their way of parenting. Um, and so, yeah, I think maybe also through like from a young age, seeing my parents experience pain, humanize them for me. Especially my dad struggled more than my mother, but my mother also struggled too. Um, or at least for me, I don't want to dismiss whatever pain my mother went through, but uh, so I do think that there is something about that, to like kind of see um, this person who, especially when you're very little, you kind of see them, you don't see them as a person, you kind of see them as this figure of like, either for me, it was like this figure who is supposed to protect me, but then also I'm very afraid of sometimes, or a lot of the time, but then also adore. And yeah, I think seeing them experience pain, and then also me as a little person who then grew up to be a bigger person and experienced pain too. It's like, oh wow, we you must be like me too, because you are also crying or whatever, and a kind of pain, because I think that like, children experiencing their parents be angry is common, but there's something else about to witness a parent go through pain that has nothing to do with you, illness,
Mm-hmm.
or even loss. Like my mother lost a lot of her siblings when I was growing up, and then lost her father. She lost her mother before I was born, or maybe when I was a little baby. So I don't remember it. But witnessing that also is very humanizing to me too. I guess, um, or at least I'm now realizing in this moment. Um, and so yeah, it just was like um, really helpful for me to make work and to write. I remember like wanting to write as much as I could when my father, in his last year, he was going like, it was like a marathon of hospital visits. Um, and I like wanted to write in detail what would happen. Um, and it felt like it was an obsession, but it also kind of felt like, okay, even though these memories are so painful, like I want to be able to like hold on to it, because it's like then I'll never lose him, even though
Mhm.
this is like a moment I maybe don't want to remember. Um, and that's also kind of how I felt about taking portraits of them, is like, if I take as many as I can, then there's no way I'll ever lose them, because I'll always have these things to return to. And kind of, I guess I was like trying to build this armor of protecting myself from grief or mourning, but there's no way. I remember having a total breakdown when my father went to the hospital. I think maybe for the fourth time. He had pneumonia for the second time, or maybe first. I can't remember. And I just had a total breakdown, because it really became clear to me, like, oh my, he's not, I don't think he's going to get any better. Because I was used to him going to the hospital, maybe staying there for a week and then hopping back and, being back to himself. But it's like, he's not getting any better, it seems like. And I just had a total breakdown, because I was like, oh my God, I didn't take enough pictures. I didn't take enough voice recordings. I didn't write enough. Like, I don't have enough of him with me. If he does leave, then he'll be gone. Um, and so, yeah, I think that is the primary explanation of why I really, there's so much about him in this book and just in my work in general, but because it just was extraordinary. It was extraordinary. Like, I really, I don't even have, probably will never have enough language, or the right kind of language to explain. And I think many people, I've read or listened to things here and there about other people experiencing grief and mourning, and know that it's like a common thing, but it really is just like, um, truly unbelievable. Um, yeah.
How has that, if it has, that sort of breakdown you had, thinking that at that point realizing you didn't write down enough, you didn't take enough pictures, has that, because I feel that way every time I talk to my dad on the phone. I'm like, wait, stay on
Mm-hmm.
the phone a little longer, please.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but has that affected the way you kind of work now, or the way that you document things in your relationships with people? Do you still kind of, do you feel that sense of urgency, even knowing that there may not be something sort of urgently wrong, or that time is, um, that it may not be, um, like, you may not be aware of the fact that time may be more quickly running out for someone that you're in relationship with, but
Right.
do you still feel that sense of urgency kind of about documenting, and not just your relationships with people, but the same could be said, just for the world around us in general?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I mean, I definitely still feel it with my mother. But honestly, I don't feel it with anything else. And I think that it's because I have yet to experience, a kind of uh, love, truly, like how I experienced with my parents. And I probably never will, because
Mhm.
I don't know if, it's just a very special and particular and painful and strange relationship to be the child of someone or two people. Um, and, my parents are not perfect at all. And my mother loves to remind me of that as an excuse. Oh, no, I'm joking. um, but, and that honestly is kind of the thing that really amazes me. I think I was just talking to a friend about this the other day, where, you know, my even even through their imperfections, that, I'm not going to go into detail, but things that I maybe find so maddening or so disrespectful or whatever, what have you. but I still, they're like the love that I have for them, and I know the love that they have for me, it's immovable. Um, and um, that is really something else. And I think very rare and special. Um, and so, yeah, I don't feel the same kind of obsession or urgency to document or to capture things in the same way of how I felt about my parents, because I feel like I have yet to have a relationship with anyone that can match up to that, and I'm actually quite okay if I never do, because I'm not interested in comparing or having something measured. Like I'm okay with having this very special experience of love that continues on forever, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and having that be untouched and over here in my life. And then I experience other people in other ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not to say that I don't love the people that I have in my life. And I do feel very lucky and blessed to have many like loved ones and, community and relationships. But all of my community and relationships with other people are still so young. Like my mom has known me for my whole life. I'm 28, and my father knew it and still maybe in other ways getting to know me. There's no one else
Yeah.
that knows me in the same way. Even like my siblings. My sister was a child when I was born. And my brother, we didn't grow up together, so it's not the same. Um, so yeah.
This project brought together so many different mediums that you work within and that you use as practice. And I'm curious, are there any other mediums or different kind of ideas for projects that you haven't tried yet that you're very interested in or looking for? And it may not even be a right now thing, but one day I want to experiment with this or play with this.
Yeah, I definitely want to dip my toes into like the traditional film world and make a narrative feature film or a like mini series. I'm obsessed with mini series these days. I think that they're so fun to think about narrative building in like the like very short episodic format. Um, but yeah, I would love to just make in a similar way of like ethnographic fiction, and make a feature film and a TV series. I love TV these days. I used to really, really love film, and I do, but I've really been tapped into TV this past year or so.
And then the question that I love to ask people is there any work that you're either experiencing right now or taking in that is really bringing you joy? Someone's work that you want to uplift or make sure other people know about or check out? What's been filling you up lately?
Yeah, well, actually, I just saw on Sunday, I saw Martine Sims, her most recent feature film, The African Desperate, which is about her experience in some ways, going to grad school, upstate New York. And I've admired Martine ever since I was like 18. And yeah, I don't know. Like I'm trying not to gush so hard, but I just admire really everything that she does and the way that she thinks about the Black experience and thinking about color and the archive and just does so. It's just everything is just so smart and so funny and so interesting. So Martine Sims, and then also who else here recently am I thinking of that really has been bringing me or feeding me in a kind of way? Um, hmm. I feel like there's some. Well, I've been teaching this or co-teaching this workshop with my mentor of many years. Also met her when I was 19, Heidi Norton. And we're co-teaching this workshop about the artist's way, or we're doing the artist's way with a group of people. And I just yesterday I had the class, and I have been pulling from this collection of like transcripts from workshops and lectures that Audre Lorde gave from 1984 to, I believe, 1992 in Europe, mainly in Berlin. And another person that I've known kind of, you know, from a distance, but I've known for a while from SAIC, where I went to undergrad, Maida Rodriguez. She edited this collection of transcripts and wrote the foreword for it. So that has also been feeding me a lot and thinking about poetry and thinking about just thinking about so many different things, lesbianism, like so on and so forth. And who else? I also had went to the Metrograph, which for listeners who aren't based in New York, it's a like independent film theater. And I went there for this like mini film festival or film programming that was about like, I think it was called there's something about paradise or losing paradise, I think is what it was called. And it was I only went to one movie, and the movie is called Salahe. I'm forgetting the filmmaker's name, but it was about this person's. She had like um, collected a lot of footage of her grandmother over the years, like in different, like Super 8, like so many different kinds of footage, had a very close relationship with her grandmother. And her grandmother also really loved film and filmmaking. And this is based in Puerto Rico. And so she lost her grandmother, and she took the footage ahead of her of losing her grandmother, and then also footage from her grandmother's funeral, and was just talking about mourning her grandmother, and then also mourning Puerto Rico and it being lost to climate change, and then also gentrification and other things. And such a beautiful, beautiful documentary, which I believe is on Vimeo. But I feel I'm upset that I can't remember the filmmaker's name, but it's called Salahe.
We'll try and find
yeah,
it, and we can add it to the show
Yep.
notes so people can watch.
Excellent.
Because it sounds beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And there was a Q&A afterward, and the filmmaker, she just was so generous. And yeah, just it was beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you again for taking the time to talk to me. For all of our listeners, my guest was Shala Miller, and we were talking about Tender Noted, which you can buy at Skylight Books. And thank you again, Shala, for your time and your generosity in conversation. It was such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me.
And do you want to tell us, are you working on anything now? We have something to look forward to, a next project maybe?
Yeah. Here immediately, I'm going to be, for those who are based in New York, I'll be performing on May 14th with the artist E. Jane. I'm just singing backup for them. And then I am working on a new body of work for a solo show with Lyles and King in Chinatown here in New York in early 2023. So either at the end of January or beginning of February. Yeah.
Well, we will keep an eye out for that. And in the meantime, again, for all our listeners, if you have not checked out Tender Noted by Shala Miller, you can grab a copy at Skylight Books. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Skylight Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylightbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.